am David with EV World News. We're talking about electric vehicles, green energy, and the stock markets. I'm here today with our founder and chief editor, Bill Moore. How's it going today, Bill?
It's going well. Thank you for asking.
All right. So
We
today
got some rain finally last night, a little bit.
a little bit. I guess it depended on where you were. In some
Yeah.
parts of town, it rained a lot, and other parts it didn't rain much at all. That's good. We definitely needed it.
Yep.
I got a few things. We're going to cover Aspen Aerogels, Lucid, Mexico, Volkswagen, US made solar, and Ford today. So we got quite a few things to
Nice spread, yeah.
yes, to talk about. The good news is I don't have any super heavy data intensive news
Stuff
articles
running.
to cover. Right. Yeah. From our friends at a couple of big news sources that seem to have horribly bloated web pages.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So let's start out talking a little bit about solar. So I sometimes complain about solar. Solar is certainly not a perfect industry by any stretch. And here's a picture of some solar panels, just a few. There's a couple of
Yeah.
a couple of solar panels out in the field there.
But you know what's even more interesting is where they're located.
Yeah. Oh, these are in the great state of Texas.
These are in Texas.
Yes. Isn't
Everything's bigger and better in Texas.
hasn't Texas passed up California for solar?
It wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't, particularly with this monster.
Yeah.
Good
So
Lord.
a company called Orion Solar has 1.3 million US made solar panels delivering 875 megawatts. It just went live in Texas. 875 megawatts. That is a
Huge.
really big deal. That's bigger than a bunch of
But
nuclear.
where's that energy going? That's also interesting.
Oh yeah, no, this is truly interesting. This article covers a lot of ground. Let's just say it covers a lot of ground. So the company celebrated the feat with a ribbon cutting attended by U.S. Secretary of Energy Jennifer Granholm, along with state and local officials. If you have a hard time envisioning Texas state officials rubbing elbows with someone from the federal government, you're not alone. This gets pretty funny because we talk about this, fairly often about the contradictions between federal government politics and local government and state government politics. Okay. So Texas is obviously a very Republican state. And so
maybe not for long.
Well, it depends on how many Californians leave California and move to Texas, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Because that's what keeps happening. The Biden-Harris administration envisioned an industrial strategy for clean energy that's built and installed by American workers, empowering American companies and proud American communities. This future is seen in action through the Orion Solar Belt in Texas. This project showcases how American-made clean energy can power data centers and our future. Now, as Bill said, that gives you a clue as to where this energy is going. So what's really kind of fascinating, you think this would be powering the Texas grid? No, 85% of the power is going to Google. Anyways, it's going to power Google data centers in Ellis County and the company's cloud services in the Dallas region. Only 15% will go to power homes and businesses in Texas.
And the thing is like the community where this is located is like a population of 400 people.
Okay. Yeah.
So obviously they can't take all that 875 megawatts. Gotta go somewhere.
I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. But Google has signed a $1 billion power purchase agreement with SB Energy Global as part of its goal to become carbon-free by 2030. Now, what's really fascinating about this, these solar panels weren't made in China. They were made in the United States by SB Energy Global, which is a division of SoftBank. Isn't SoftBank European?
No, SoftBank's owned by Indian company. No, Japanese company. Anyway, I think there's an Oriental. SoftBank has an Oriental.
But the solar panels are made in the United States.
Yeah, they're made here.
And and they expect that they will qualify. They better qualify. They're investment's going to be off by a lot. Made available by the Inflation Reduction Act, which was enacted in 2022 without one single Republican vote in Congress. And yet Texas officials were on hand to bamboozle voters into thinking they somehow deserve credit for bringing this project to fruition. The bamboozle was the article's word, not mine.
Right, exactly.
And I've talked about this a lot because I've brought Republican political people to green energy events in Florida. And they're happy to promote it. None of them have any issue with green energy. They all want to see local job creation and things like that. The issue is, what is the best use of American taxpayer dollars? Okay. And, I think clean energy is a pretty worthwhile goal, and it needs kind of a kick to be able to get it started.
So also make sure that you mention the fact that not only are the panels built in America, the steel that holds all that up in that photograph, that's also American-made steel.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Did it cover that? I don't know if it covered that in the article or not.
Yeah, it covers it. Yeah.
Okay.
It names the two companies. Well, it's one company, but they have two separate steel plants. But they're both located here in the United States.
So the Houston Chronicle reports the 3 solar farms are located in the town of Buckholz, which is about 150 miles northwest of Houston, 75 miles north of Austin, has a population of less than 400 people. The 3 solar farms are built side by side. Let's see, and the 875 megawatts could power 105,000 homes if it was dedicated to that and not to Google data centers.
Right.
Google data centers house some of the world's most popular services and are a major economic engine for 21st century business. Now, here's what was interesting. They quoted a guy from Google who was the vice president of 24/7 and capacity. That's his title, is vice president of 24/7 and capacity. It's like, that is just interesting. What do you do at Google? Well, I'm the vice president of 24/7 and capacity. His name is Ben Sloss, by the way. So Ben, if you're out there, I bet your business card raises some interesting questions. Anyways.
Well, okay, because the next question you want to ask him, though, is if you've got all this huge solar plant, what happens when the sun goes down?
Well, they close for the night.
Yeah, they close for that. Yeah, right.
Yeah, they close Google for the night.
Shut your browsers off. We're shutting her down for tonight. See you at 6 a.m. tomorrow morning when the sun peaks over the horizon.
Let's see. Does it give us anything about batteries here?
No, I didn't see anything about batteries. No.
Yeah, so eventually there's going to have to be some big battery parks to support this, but I didn't see anything about the battery situation. It's probably because the battery's probably made by cattle.
Very possible. Well, but that whole area is a huge part of Tesla's business strategy. So they make a huge amount of money. So, but no, I don't recall that it mentions what happens when the sun goes down. Now, that being said, of course, there's an awful lot of wind in that part of Texas as well. So it could be that they just cut over to and buy it off of local wind providers. So
I had somebody on a video talk about how people want to charge their EVs at night when there's no renewable energy available. And they're just like, apparently you're not familiar with wind. And there's a disparity that for some reason wind is best at 1 a.m. and nobody really knows. Well, I have no idea why the wind blows so hard at night, but
temperature difference.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, between the surface temperature and the air temperature. Yeah,
makes the turbines turn faster.
Well, that temperature difference is what causes the the movement of the air from. It's just what's the term in physics? Come on, Bill. Now you're showing your age again. But anyway, once you got that temperature differential, the heat wants to flow to the cold side, right? And so that's what causes
induction
that to move. No. I want to say entropy, but that's not entropy. There's another word. Sorry, folks. Not a scientist. Don't pretend
No,
to be
no,
one.
no. We leave that up to Mike.
Right.
Um,
Leave it
all
to Mike.
right. Well,
Ask
anyways,
him that tomorrow.
I was really fascinated by the fact that the solar panels were made in the United States. It would have
Yeah.
been interesting to see financial data on that whole project to see, but we're never going to get that because the general rule of thumb is $1 million per megawatt, which takes 5 acres of land. There's just some easy rules of thumb,
Did they mention
and
how many acres of ground that thing covers? I don't recall seeing that. I just see the total number of panels, and so you could probably sit down and, calculate, what
yeah, it's going to be
that is.
approximately 4,500 acres.
Yeah.
I can just do the math in my head. So that yeah,
That's why I
that's
got
something
you on,
my little brain
right.
can actually calculate, which is still that's a lot of acres of nothing but solar panels. But
Well,
and we're
yeah,
starting to see some
and you
novel
wonder,
approaches.
yeah, but then you wonder, what else could we do with that ground underneath it? Because there's going to be a temperature difference between those solar panels, which get warm, and
Mhm.
then the ground below. And so there's another difference. And could that temperature difference there be used for for something
Well,
else?
you almost always see them sitting in a position where they're almost to the ground. And, it makes a lot of sense if they're elevated by 6 or 7 feet. So not only could people walk underneath it, but large animals could comfortably
Livestock can
walk
get them.
underneath
Right.
them
Right.
too. And
They
you're
do the
still going to
job.
have grass and
They do the job of mowing for you and providing you with someone with an additional revenue source, whether it's the farmer who's leasing, there's the shepherd who's leasing the ground, access to the ground underneath, or whatever other uses. In Japan, what they do is they grow shiitake mushrooms on logs underneath the solar panels. So
oh,
that could be a source of
well, I saw something a while back where solar panels were done in Africa and somehow they were collecting condensation from
yeah,
the solar panels. And
and
I didn't
using
quite, I'm not smart enough to understand how they were getting condensation, but I thought that was kind of fascinating that it was serving. And those ones were definitely mounted higher because it had
right,
pictures of
right,
people
right.
walking underneath and they were growing crops underneath.
Yeah, sure.
And so that was a different angle. The thing is, normally you want all
Ooh,
the sunlight on your crops, but I guess in their case, they didn't want this. It's so hot, they
no,
didn't want the
no,
stuff
no,
frying.
no. I saw a really interesting. What was that now? What they were doing is they were growing, and was it algae? I think it was algae. They were growing algae and taking the moisture that created that, and then they were collecting that. I think it was algae. I believe this was in Africa, or was it in Asia somewhere? But they were collecting that algae. They were turning that into cattle feed that you could then take and feed that as a either was it cattle or was it ducks or something. But anyway, they figured out how to duplicate, get the two things to work in harmony together. So all kinds of things we can do when we start thinking out of the coal box, so to speak.
No, I get it. I get it. All right, let's go on and talk one of our stock news. So I want to talk about Lucid a little bit. And now Lucid is a company that's owned about 65% by the Saudi royal family.
Mm-hmm.
And about 30% of the company's stock is actually in the public float. And when I say the public float, even that public float is probably more than 50% owned by major hedge funds like BlackRock and Vanguard.
Right.
Okay. So and even then, I'm sure the Saudis own part of that public float too.
Part of that too. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, anyways, Lucid announced a new public offering last week to raise $1.75 billion.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. CEO Peter Rawlinson said the raise was a timely strategic business decision to ensure the EV maker has enough capital for its ongoing operations and growth plans. He told CNBC that investors should have expected the move, saying it was a misinterpreted and misreported after the company's stock fell. and the stock fell to a low for the year, I believe, for about $2.50. And I think Lucid is something that is a long-term play. It's not going away. The Saudis have too much in the way of plans for it in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. They have bigger plans for the company than what the company is now, just in Saudi Arabia. So I think you're going to see, some consistent.
And I think they've set their sights on putting Tesla in its place too. But,
maybe.
yeah.
I don't know if that's how the Saudis feel, but
that's the way he's been talking about how much more efficient the technology is than what they have at Tesla. I think that's what he said is now. Of course, they have to figure out a way to build those cars, affordably, because your market for $100,000+ car is pretty limited.
it is.
So if you
There's no
to
question.
figure out a way to do that, in a much more affordable manner, and maybe that's where they're going. Aren't they planning on building some of them in Saudi Arabia? I
Yeah,
believe?
that's the plan, is to actually build the cars in Saudi Arabia. So, anyways, the idea here was it was a business decision to ensure the EV company has enough capital for its ongoing operations and growth plans. Now, if you have less than a year's worth of cash on hand, you're classified as a going concern on the NASDAQ. Okay, so
Going which way?
yeah, well, the concern is, will you run out of money and go out of business?
Right.
And that's actually, to be honest, it's a cool idea. But if you could imagine every business having a year's worth of cash in the bank, it's really hard to fathom,
Yeah.
that people would have that early on in the business.
Well,
But
they encourage us as individual consumers. You should have what, a minimum of
6
three
months,
months.
the 3 to
Well, I've
6
heard
months,
6 months. Yeah. How many people have that? Really?
not very many, not many.
No.
No. But we'd signaled previously that we had a cash runway to Q4 of next year. As a NASDAQ company, we have to avoid a going concern, and a going concern is issued within 12 months of your financial runway. So it should have been no surprise when they did this. It shouldn't have been a surprise to anybody. But Wall Street analysts took a negative view of the move. Well, the thing is, when you do that and you do that raise, you are watering down
Yeah,
the
you're watering down
value
the
of all the current
previous.
stockholders.
Yeah.
And the company already had $5 billion of total liquidity to end the third quarter, including $4 billion in cash equivalents, and investment balances. The announced transactions have come 2 months after Lucid said Saudi Arabia's public investment fund agreed to supply the company with another $1.5 billion in cash, as the EV maker looks to add new models to its product line. A cap raise was slightly larger and earlier than we expected. And right now the stock's at 262.
Yeah, didn't they? I mean, they produced virtually what Tesla turns out in a week. It took them to produce that in a quarter. They just was it like 1,800 cars, and they delivered 2,700 cars, something like that. So yeah, they've got some serious growth that they need to be able to make them, a viable competitor to the likes of BYD or in particular Tesla, if they've got their sights set on him.
Well, Tesla's producing millions of cars, and they're producing 9,000.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
they probably produce the amount of cars in
9,000 vehicles this year they expect to produce. So it's not even remotely close.
We're back. Okay.
Did I die? One of us is having connection issues. Who knows? Could be either of us. All right. So let's talk next about Aspen Aerogels. And am I coming through okay now?
You're coming through fine. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yep.
Good. All right. So Aspen Aerogels is a company that calls itself a technology leader in sustainability and electrification solutions. Now, I think in truth, most of their revenue probably comes from the oil and gas industry, but we'll get into that in a minute. But they are, let me see, they're announcing that they're going to go public at $20 a share. And they're going to go live on the big board on the New York Stock Exchange, a symbol ASPN or Aspen. So they're looking to raise 85 million before underwriting discounts. And the reason I wanted to bring this up was it was kind of interesting because they claim to be in the sustainability space. I'm going to bring up their website. And while this is interesting because I think there's big claims of being in the sustainability space, enabling a more sustainable future. Our aerogel technology platform inspires innovative solutions for energy conservation and storage. Now, they do things in battery materials, thermal runaway barriers, energy infrastructure, LNG, refining and petrochemicals, floating production vessels. And so a lot of their things are really related to the oil and gas industry, but they're trying to find ways to be more efficient. I think there's a lot of things like we've talked about biofuels a little bit. I mean, the biofuels are cleaner than straight, fuel being pumped out of the ground, but they're still not obviously as clean as, electric power. But even electric power, still has the tainted part of where does that energy come from, right? So, there's always something, and every effort to improve is a good thing. But anyways, I just wanted to cover that real briefly because that was in the news today. And we'll move on to our Mexico news. So this isn't something we come up with much, but Mexico plans a new affordable EV brand. The president of Mexico, Claudia Sheinbaum, announced plans to produce an EV that will be fully manufactured and assembled in Mexico. The initiative is part of her broader vision to modernize Mexico's industrial landscape by focusing on advanced technologies, including semiconductors, drones, and clean energy solutions. The EV is going to be called the Olinea, which comes from a word, olini, meaning movement. So Olinea is supposed to be a word for movement. The aim is to create a more affordable EV alternative to help make EVs accessible to a larger portion of the Mexican population. This would contrast with the higher priced EVs currently on the market, such as the Chevy Equinox, which is priced at about $43,000. Sheinbaum's administration envisioned this project as part of a larger effort to position Mexico as a key player in future mobility. Now, what's interesting, they've got a lot of automakers in Mexico. You've got Audi, BMW, Ford, GM, Honda, Hyundai, Jack by Giant Motors, Kia, Mazda, Mercedes-Benz, Nissan, Stellantis, Toyota, and Volkswagen. All those companies make cars in Mexico. Now,
in Mexico,
yeah. Now, a lot of, in the 90s, when NAFTA got passed, a lot of U.S. manufacturing got moved to Mexico. And that's
that way.
The giant sucking sound. The giant sucking sound. Yes. As Ross Perot liked to call it. Yeah. So anyways, it's still, to this day, I still hate that Ross Perot didn't get elected. So anyways, I think he would have changed a lot of how we look at manufacturing.
Yeah. So I drive, that's what my Fiat was engineered by, I think it was a BMW or that, and it was built in Mexico with, and I forget whose batteries are in it, but anyway, it's a an international effort, so to speak.
Right.
So there's plenty of installed base down there. There's no problem. I would be interested. don't see them doing a lot of design work there. I haven't seen any. I will say this, that when I was invited down to Mexico City for one of the first electric vehicle, I guess you would call it symposiums held in Mexico City. One of the very first vehicles I drove in was a VW Bug, right? Because the very last country in the world to manufacture the original Bug was Mexico. In fact, if you went to Mexico, VW Bugs were everywhere. That's what people drove. And so here was a university professor who was driving me around. His students, and we went down to the Mexico University, and what we were driving around in was a car, a VW Beetle that had been converted to electric by his students. So,
oh, nice.
So what? I mean, I've all there was the new Beetle, which of course Volkswagen doesn't make anymore either. But why not take that platform, right, and just do what those kids did, electrify it. Because you got new battery technology, more efficient motor technology. You've already got this beautiful little four passenger car that everybody in Mexico City or in Mexico is familiar with. It's rugged, boy, take that platform and maybe license from Volkswagen, or do what the Chinese do and steal the design.
Right. Yeah.
and build that. That would there now. Of course, what happens in terms of NAFTA? Or we don't call it that anymore, don't we? Have a new acronym for it? Something.
I'm not aware of one.
Well, I think there was the American, Mexican, Canadian agreement, whatever it is. What happens to that when you've got a car that is all of it sourced from Mexico City or from Mexico? Can it be brought in and sold in the United States? Question that's going to have to be resolved someday.
Yeah. Well, the Olinea car is set to become an affordable EV aimed at Mexican families and young consumers. The target price is under 500,000 pesos, which would be about 25,000 US.
25, yeah.
Making it more accessible than other EV models currently available, such as the SEV E-WAN Cross and the BYD Dolphin Mini.
All of which can't be driven here in the United States, can't be bought.
Right. Yeah. So a company called Zacua, which was founded in 2017 in Mexico City, was the first company to produce and sell a Mexican electric car. It collaborated with a French automaker, Automobiles Châtenay, using the Châtenay CH30 microcar as a base to develop Zacua's MX3 and MX2 models, with completely new electric drivetrains coming from a Spanish company called Dynamic Technological Alliance. It sourced its batteries from a Chinese partner, began production in 2019. And apparently those are, but they don't use all Mexican parts.
No.
So they're coming from other countries. But they made a small, affordable electric cars. They're micro cars, only available in Mexico, compete with models like the Renault Twizy.
Yeah, so it's basically a neighborhood electric vehicle.
Yeah, more or less. It looks a little more stylish though than the smart car for two. I mean, a little bit. I mean, it might be tiny though, but still.
Yeah.
It's designed for 5-year-olds. No, I'm.
Yeah. Yep, there we go.
It's kind of interesting to see.
I wonder, does Mexico have the same quadricycle rules that they have in Europe? Because over there they have a rule. I think 14 years old you can drive one of these.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
no idea, but it's a good looking little car for what it is. Doesn't give us any statistics on what that car might cost. Right. Yeah, I'm just saying, you're looking for cheap transportation, which seems to be the name of the game there. I'm really surprised you don't have a company like what's the Vietnamese company? VinFast.
Yeah, VinFast, yeah.
Looking at manufacturing there, especially we're waiting for that VF3 to come to the US. I think that's another one that would probably, you know, be good for Mexico.
Well,
All
let's
right.
put there's lots of and I don't know if you've seen it or not, but you get a chance, look up the Audi's new EV that they have. I think if you put in Audi, that story should get a link to it. That's a different design for Audi.
Let's see. It's the weirdest hatchback.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
oh my
that's it.
God.
That's it. Show it to the folks.
Oh my, this is almost as bad as that Russian car that we did a while back that looked like
Yeah.
it was from the TV show Cars. Man, you know, this looks like
Well,
BMWs.
that's not bad actually. That's not looks like the same photo I saw. That's not bad.
Is this
You know,
not the car you're referring to?
no, that's it. I just didn't, in my rush to post stories, I just saw a small, snapshot of it, and I thought, well, that's different. No, that's not bad actually. It's
Yeah,
four door.
it looks like it's got eyebrows, kind of.
Well,
Yeah,
that's the well, there's a market. Let's go into business and make attachable eyebrows
eyebrows.
to put on it. Yeah, right.
Well, you see that occasionally on
Yeah,
cars,
yeah.
but
People
yeah,
do
this
that with
one,
people do that with the Fiat 500. So.
this definitely looks like it has a facial expression going on the
Well,
front.
kind of become an engineering trend if you've noticed. In fact, if you look at the VW, which I guess we'll talk about here in a moment, the VW Buzz, that's got the way they've done, it's got a very friendly. Some designs, if you look at them, they're meant to be intimidating. They've got
Right. No, I
these,
get that.
but then there are these vehicles that are meant to be kind of happy, right?
Right. All right. Well, let's move on to the Volkswagen.
Oh yeah.
Yes. The people wagon. Yes. All right. The people's wagon. Right back to that
There
original
you go.
concept of the people mover here.
See that
This
happy
is the,
smile?
yep, the Volkswagen ID Buzz, an electric vehicle like no other. Let's see. So when is this actually going to be available?
Well, they've got it here in the U. They brought some over for the media. Again, I didn't get invited. Dang it! But they brought something that looks like they brought them into San Francisco and let people drive them around. The Golden Gate Bridge Park, that area.
It has more cargo room than the Kia EV9, and which is the most obvious rival because it also has 3 rows of seats. Let me see. The Kia only has 82 cubic feet of cargo volume versus 146. All 3 rows of the VW van have excellent, almost absurdly spacious knee and headroom. Any similarly scaled SUV isn't comparably spacious.
No.
It's not a minivan. It's closer to an SUV, but it really sits in a category of its own. It's a full foot shorter than any gas-fueled minivan like the Sienna and has a step-in height lower than any comparable 3-row truckish option. Let's see. Oh, let's see if we can get this any bigger. These are, this looks nice.
Oh, look at that. It's leg room to spare. And
Yeah.
somebody's working on a thing to make that a camper, right? That's probably
Oh,
been
for
in the works
sure.
for quite a while.
For sure, they're doing that. They'll probably make a matching trailer to pull behind it too.
Oh, why not?
Yeah. Let's see. 234 miles of range. Let's see. Starting price is 60,000, but it's really it puts about the same as the Kia EV9 and a bit cheaper than the Rivian R1S. That's a big vehicle.
And the interesting thing is that this is actually the first in the U.S. They've been doing electric minivans and style vehicles in China for some time now, but this is the first one. And one of the articles I was looking at pointing out the fact that there are only a handful of minivans now. There's Toyota has one, Okay, come on. Chrysler has the Pacifica. There just aren't many of the minivan class vehicles that are out there anymore. So they found themselves, and none of them are electric. Of course, this is the first
Right.
electric one. So
Well, the first electric for one that will come to the U.S.
yeah,
BYD makes a minivan.
yeah, but again, not here in the U.S.
No, no, not for the U.S. market. So, and the funny thing is, the BYD minivan, I think, still has like SUV style doors as opposed to the sliding doors.
Yeah, and the slide. I mean, I used to own an Odyssey for a period of time when I was doing the quick bike project, basically to get my bikes around, and I love that feature. That's a nice feature, but you
Yeah,
know,
nice looking, nice looking. I'm sure
it is.
that we're going to be seeing a lot of these around on the roads. I'm sure it's going to be a big seller for Volkswagen. All right, let's move on to the Mustang. So, 2025 Mustang Mach-E is going to take on a new look. I don't know how much more of a new look it could be. This is what I'm
No,
seeing for a picture.
better yet is the decrease in price.
Oh, well, that all helps, right? We're
Yep.
expecting a big price change.
Not a big price change, but enough to it's cheaper. The 2025 model will be cheaper than the 2024 model, for example.
Let's see what we got here.
And of course, pricing always depends on options and all that kind of thing.
Yeah, I still am opposed to the fact that they named it Mustang. They could have just called it Mach-E.
Yeah.
You know, the
Yeah,
Mustang
that's
part is a bit distracting to people.
I would agree with you. Yeah. Why not just give it a new name, or pick out one of the Fairlane, one
Mhm.
of the obsolete names that they had, you know, retired years ago. Just bring it back as that. Well, they're kind of doing that though, aren't they, with the Fiesta?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, I think they're doing that in Europe with bringing back, what was it, the Fiesta, and then there was another model that what was that now? Mercury. Oh, skips me now. There's too much happening. I mean, when you think about when I started EV World, there were what, 5 EVs, and now we've got, just in the U.S. alone, we've got what, over 100 models now, something like that.
Do any of those 5 originals still exist?
No,
So
nope.
all the 5 originals are gone.
All the
Now,
5
at some
originals.
point, it probably
Now
went
they're.
down from 5, right?
Oh yeah, we were down at one point to none.
So it
None of
went
them.
from 5 to 0, and then
And,
eventually you
and
had to wait for the
and
Leaf to come out.
then you had to wait for the Leaf, and you had to wait for the Tesla Roadster. Yep.
Man, and the
Now
Leaf came out what, around 2008,
in,
2009?
in between, there was a Chevrolet Volt.
Okay.
So that was the next car along the line. But in that sort of interregnum period, when when all the car makers were comatose, yeah,
Right.
some of the car makers sold their original mandate EVs to owners, and so those cars were running around for quite a while. But no, the EV1, they collected them all and crushed them, out in the desert. Honda did the same thing with. I mean, I have no idea why they did that to the EV Plus. That was a perfect little. We had cars like what we're talking about today, small, affordable, for four-passenger electric cars. We had that in the form of the EV Plus. The Hyper Mini by Nissan, yeah, that probably wasn't going to do much. It was a little two-passenger city car. But that Honda EV Plus, God, they should have kept working on that. That would have given them a huge leg up. But of course, what did they? Yeah, there it is. That was a great little car, and they could have done a little work and made it a four door. But people that had that, the people that leased that car just loved it. And once they killed the California mail, well, didn't kill it. Once they put it in a coma,
Right.
the mandate, the car company said, "Oh, goody, we'll just call all these cars back in and we'll crush them." And that's what happened to these.
Hmm.
It's a
Hard to
nice
imagine, isn't it?
nice little car, and everybody that, like I said, had it loved it.
Yep. 1997 to 1999, 300 produced.
Yep.
That's just funny. And let's see. It was the first electric vehicle that didn't use lead acid.
No, nickel metal hydride. Yeah.
Huh. Still before the lithium ion batteries.
Yeah, before that. Yeah, lithium didn't come in until the roughly 2000-ish year, and right after that.
Yeah. Wow.
That's when the guys over at oh, come on, Bill. Here we go again. Anyway, there was a small company in California that developed a car called the T0, which was a little two-seat sports car. They were the first ones to take laptop batteries and put them in an electric car, and got a car that had, I think it was maybe a couple hundred miles range. You guys correct me if you're listening, but that was the first application of
I
lithium.
remember how much
lithium-ion batteries.
an extra battery cost for like a Dell notebook in the early 2000s.
Well,
It'd be
yeah.
like $165 or something like that.
Yeah.
You can
And
swap the
that's what
battery
they
out.
did. They just took a bunch of them, but their specialty was they were seriously into electronics. These are the guys who basically, my understanding, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding, these are the guys that invented regenerative braking for cars. That was my first experience with a car with regenerative braking was the car that they created.
Well, that's kind of cool. All
Yeah.
right. Well, Bill, I think that's pretty much all I've got
Are
to
we
cover for
done?
today.
Wow,
Yeah.
fantastic. That was fun.
Yep. Yep. All right. Well,
Memory lane.
yep. I know. I get it. I get it. It is fascinating though, because I didn't, until I started doing this, I didn't even realize that there had been EVs before the Nissan Leaf,
Oh yeah.
and that actually, though it's hard to call a car that had produced 300 units production, and
Yeah.
it's some kind of production. I mean,
what that was, just to clarify, people, the reason for that is that California had a mandate that said from this date forward, which in this case was 1998, you will produce a percentage of the cars that you sold in California. And that first percentage was 10%. And then every year after that, it would go up slightly, right? And so the car companies, and particularly the Western oil guys, said, yeah, we're not going to do this. And so they fought tooth and nail at the California Air Resources Board. They put all kinds of political grassroots pressure to basically, they didn't do away with the mandate because it's still there, but they basically said, we're going to give you another option. And that other option was hydrogen. So they said, oh, good. We don't have to spend any money anymore on electric vehicles. But in Honda's case, that percentage worked out to be about 300. I thought it was actually more than that. I thought it was like about 1,200 cars, but maybe I'm just thinking of the GM mandate for the EV1. But anyway, there were just a limited number, and you couldn't buy them. You had to just lease them. And once the mandate had been put to bed, right around 2004 timeframe, you had all these cars running around. So Ford had the Ford Ranger, which they sold to people. GM, like I said earlier, decided we're just going to collect all the cars that we had out on leases, and we're going to crush them, which is what they did. And you can find photos on the internet about that. Honda did the same thing, but I don't know where they may have sent them back overseas. I can't, because it was a relatively small number of cars. But they did away with theirs. They wouldn't sell them to their customers. Chrysler had minivans. There was just a handful of those. So they probably took and, did the same thing, crushed them. By the time it was all done, nobody was left. None of the cars were left.
I didn't.
There's a few, you can find them in museums, and there's the odd. Apparently, there's an EV. Somebody owns an EV1 out there that somehow didn't get accounted for when they were recalled. So there's a few of those out. This is there's the Ranger.
Yeah, a 2000 Ford Ranger EV with 48,000 miles.
Yeah, yep.
Has a 60-mile NIMH battery,
Yeah.
which that's an old laptop battery, or what you would use as a battery backup.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what I don't know where Ford sourced them from, but Ford and said, hey, we'll sell it to you, and so there was owners took and bought them because they liked them, and they were just used for basically running around town. I had to pick up some compost at or peat moss or something at the Home Depot, 5 miles away. I'll put it in the back of my Ford Ranger, and it gets me back and forth to work, 10 miles or whatever.
What's funny is, I wonder if somebody found one of those for sale now, if you could get the tax credit on it.
I don't know.
I think the tax credit goes from 4,000 to 30% of the price at a certain point, but it'd be just kind of funny. Reza, you can get an extended warranty on an EV. They do sell them.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's not an issue to get. Yeah, so you can get those. I mean, the thing is, if you were to look at, let's say you bought a used EV, and like you're buying a used Tesla with 80,000 miles on it. Okay. So, and let's say it's a Tesla long range. It has a 120,000 mile warranty already, 8-year, 120,000 mile warranty. Still have 40,000 miles to go. Well, let's assume that you're a normal driver that drives about 10,000 miles a year. So that's about 4 years of that battery still being under warranty. Well, in 4 years, it's no longer going to cost $12,000 to replace that battery. Maybe it'll cost you about $7,000 to replace it. And if you got an extended warranty on it, they usually are something like, even if you were trying to go out to 300,000 miles, it might only be a 5-year warranty. So, the warranties aren't generally like 10 years or something like that added on. They might do a few years.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying that, in all likelihood, the cost of that warranty package, let's say you added an extended warranty, it might cost $5,000 to add on to a Tesla. And the truth is, in 4 or 5 years, when it might go out, that's about the price of replacing the battery anyways.
Yeah.
So, because the prices of batteries keep plummeting. They are plummeting. On average, they cut in half every 2 years. And they've been doing this. So in the last 16 years, the price of batteries has gone down 90%.
Yeah, what are we looking at? Something like we're on target here for below $100 per kilowatt hour now.
I think we're already there. Yeah. No, I understand that. I understand that. And there's no harm also in hedging, bets through insurance and things like that, or, trying to spread out your risk. But just saying that there are, those policies do exist, and it's, it just depends on what you're going after. Honestly, I've seen people talk about their, like, Tesla Model S's they bought like a 2014, and they said that at a certain point when it got to be 10 years old, they're starting to have all kinds of actual problems with the car. It'd be more like what you'd have expect out of a 10-year-old car.
Yeah.
Where little things like everything from power windows, windshield wipers, little things that go on with the suspension, just different things, having issues. And the problem is, it's hard to get service on some of that older Tesla stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
Oh, that's interesting. You replaced the battery and the volt for $1,200. That's pretty cool. And that, of course, I realize
yeah.
that's a small battery for a plug-in hybrid, but still, that doesn't seem like a bad deal at all.
No.
Anyways,
Okay.
and we appreciate you watching us.
Well, yeah,
Anyways,
absolutely. Thanks.
folks, have a great day, and I'll be back with Mike Herzog tomorrow and with Bill on Thursday. Oh, on Thursday we have Oasis Amps with us.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
Looking
so
forward to it.
that's his day to come and talk. Anyways, everybody have a great
Okay.
day.